so much for being here today. It really means a lot, and I don't know, this panel has had, I don't know how many people are aware, it's had a little bit of a journey in terms of reception online. And
yeah, everyone's really been excited for it, only positive things.
Only positive things. Yeah, you'd be surprised. You know, homophobia has been eradicated over the past year. Thank God. Yeah, you did it! So anyway, I just wanted to say, like, thank you for being here, it really means a lot. I am Chase, I go by That Gay Jedi online. And this is?
I'm Rebecca, I go by Pencil Scratchings online.
And they do amazing fan art. Amazing, amazing fan art.
And you make amazing videos.
We're
also friends in real life. It's not just for the stage.
But we have been considering a lavender marriage in our near future. So, have you ever noticed that, like, Star Wars, it's like, seems it seems a little bit gay sometimes. And surprisingly, it actually has informed a lot of our own queer journeys. I mean, I attribute Star Wars, and specifically the character of, like, Rey, to be sort of a milestone in my own, like, navigation of, like, discovering and exploring my non-binary identity. And I know you have a little thing for a little someone.
Oh yeah, Obi-Wan Kenobi, I stole that man's gender. Yes, gender and haircut. I said, give me both. Yeah, no, I as a kid, I remember seeing him and just, like, it was that moment of just being like, oh, that's what I want to look and act like. So very much Star Wars has kind of informed both of us kind of going on this journey of gender discovery and sexuality discovery, and I mean, that's kind of dope that a piece of media can do that.
Yes, yes. And I'd also like to thank Hayden Christensen for his contribution to my discovery. So we're very proud and grateful to Star Wars Celebration and Lucasfilm to be able to have a panel like this in this big of a way, and especially, you know, as Americans, where queer and trans people have really become the scapegoats and targets for a lot of really hateful culture wars. So it's important that we're here to have fun though. So I promise it's not just gonna be that. Before we get into anything, we want to give you a little bit of a rundown of what this looks like. First, we're going to do a little drag 101. We're just going to talk about drag in a more modern context. It's impossible to, you know, really go through every corner of it, but we want to do a little drag 101. And then when we were exploring, like, what we wanted to talk about at the panel, we kind of boiled down drag as an art form down to, like, 3 main, core elements. Yeah. And we aligned those with the Star Wars trilogies. So we're going to start with the prequels and politics and kind of explore the political side of drag through the prequels. We're going to be talking about the original trilogy and camp and just the entertainment value of drag. And then we're going to be talking about the sequel trilogy and identity discovery and expression and drag as the same. So that's what we're doing, and we'll do like a little Q&A at the end, and it'll be a whole moment, and there's stickers up here. So that's the vibe. Thank you. Okay, so drag 101. How many people here have done drag or do drag? Slay! Love. And that coat is everything. That trench coat is serving mommy, daddy, Vader. It's everything. So, like I said, it's a little impossible to cover, like, every nook and cranny of drag's history, because it's been around kind of like since the beginning of time across cultures all over the world.
Basically, since we've had an idea of gender culturally, we have found a way to play with it and make it a performance.
Yes. And so it's a very like rich, complex, nuanced thing. And so we just want to kind of like put that as a disclaimer, because we're not going to cover it all. But we will like to start with sort of like the ancient theatrical roots of it, and that's kind of where we see in like a modern context a lot of like drag coming up as a thing. It was through performance.
Yeah, and if you look back into the earliest theater in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, we see drag being a very common thing because women were not allowed on stage, so men would have to dress in drag in order to perform female roles. So basically, this is at the beginning of theater, and it carried on through theater into the Victorian era and even today, because, you know, Hairspray is still a thing. That is a famous musical with a famous drag character that is still only played by drag queens. So then when we move through that, also we see this in different cultures. We see this in prima donnas in opera. They were very much kind of drag personas. They were less about their actual, obviously they were talented, but it was more about the show and the spectacle that they put on.
Mm-hmm. And also similar to like Japanese kabuki theater is also similar in that way, in the performance aspect. Yeah, so it's just been like, it's a very like cross-cultural global art form. And I don't know, I just like find it's very important, and I will be saying this a million more times today. I find it very important to like remind everyone, not that anyone in here needs reminding, but like drag has been around forever, it will be around forever, so no matter like how much it's like people attempt to police it or criminalize it or whatever they want to do with it, it will always be here and it will always slay. So, slay. Yes, okay, so then we're gonna fast forward pretty far, more recently in the American drag scene. We can trace it back, like in a modern context, to vaudeville in the 1920s, vaudeville being just sort of like lighthearted comedic performances that had specialty acts, and a lot of those specialty acts were drag. And then that kind of led to this really big success of gender impersonators. And there was like a real appetite for it, and people loved it, and people celebrated it. And then that led to sort of the pansy craze, which was compounded by Prohibition, which is like my favorite. Well, I don't know if I should say my favorite thing about Prohibition is, but
there's so many things to choose from.
So many things. But one thing that is kind of like cool to think about is because Prohibition, like it kind of just forced all these people from all these different walks of life to go to these like underground clubs and speakeasies. And so it's like a really wild like intersection of all these different cultures and subcultures. And that again, sort of like drag was celebrated. It was celebrated by people of so many different kinds.
Yes, but just with everything, once we get a bit of freedom, that is when a lot of our liberties begin to be taken away. Because as we move past the 20s into the 30s, this is when we start to see the criminalization of homosexuality on a larger scale, and then introductions of 2 article laws, which is basically everybody had to be wearing at least 2 articles of clothing of their assigned gender, at least in the United States. I know that similar laws were also effective in the UK, but did not look up that, which I should have, because this is a UK panel. But yes, so we see that get illegalized, and then through that, it kind of became inherently political, because by doing drag, by even just expressing yourself in like your actual identity, you started to do something that was illegal, and that kind of leads into the next era of queer expression.
Yeah, which is the age of conformity, the 1950s. So yeah, that like Rebecca's saying, it was a lot of policing of homosexuality in the LGBTQI community. And I want to, before we get to Stonewall briefly, I want you to talk about the mobs and mafia, because they have a little hand in this, a dirty little hand.
Can you believe, yeah, I've been talking for 5 minutes and haven't mentioned that I'm Italian American, and I think honestly I deserve a prize for that. But so one thing that a lot of people don't actually know, because we don't talk about this a lot, is a lot of gay clubs and gay bars were owned by the mob, especially in New York, Philly, and New Jersey. And the reason this was because the mob had connections to the police. So the mob could own these clubs, treat its patrons terribly, and make deals with the police and be like, okay, on Tuesdays this month and Wednesdays this month, you can come do a raid and arrest a ton of queer people, and then in return, you look away while we do all of this illegal mob activity. And I think sometimes when people hear that like the mafia owned gay clubs, they're like, allies!
They're like, yes!
No, they were not. In fact, Stonewall was actually famously run by the mob, and I believe the Gotti clan, not 100% sure, but they were famous for treating their patrons terribly, abusing them, abusing staff who were mostly all queer people, and it was just a terrible situation, but there was really nowhere else to go.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this led to, obviously, the Stonewall riots in 1969, and consequently the first Pride celebration, and sort of like the modern, like the fight for gay liberation. And like, I just want to say, like, look what, like if you try to control and police homosexuality or any like group of people, it's only going to lead to like increased pushback and activism and increased demand for equality, which I think is a nice reminder, because like as things keep getting like I'll just say tossed around. It's nice to know that it's like, well, that might, if that is a reality, unfortunately, there's only gonna be more and more pushback and even a bigger, greater hunger and demand for equality. So we love that. And so after that, we kind of went, there's a lot more community building in queer spaces. There was like a lot more drag balls and drag houses and community building, especially in the face of the AIDS crisis, which further ostracized the queer community. And then over the years, artists like Divine and Lady Bunny and RuPaul and many more have brought drag into film and into music and into like other media that's kind of really led to its popularization today.
Absolutely, yeah. We see John Waters did a lot of work with Divine to bring drag into the mainstream, and that was still considered counterculture. And then obviously now we exist in a world where there is Drag Race airing on a major television network, and comparing that to what it was like in the 50s, the idea that there is a syndicated television network showing a drag competition is just bonkers crazy sauce. So, yeah. And that's an official term, bonkers crazy sauce.
So yeah, bottom line is drag is forever. It's political, it's entertainment, it's identity, and it's so much more. So without further ado, now we're getting into Star Wars, and specifically the prequel trilogy and politics in the prequels and politics through drag. And I have to start by talking about my girl, Asajj Ventress, because I love Asajj. She just like represents such a fiery queer rebellion for me as a Star Wars fan. And first and foremost, listen, she's a babe, okay? The gender euphoria she must experience, I'm so jealous. I crave her gender.
In like the 2000s bandage dress?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so what's drag about her? Ben de la Creme, a famous drag queen, says that drag is an ability to create magic out of nothing. Whether that means a fabulous outfit, oh, I'm gonna cry. I love this quote, it's just so stupid. I love this.
I'll hold you.
I really did not think I was gonna cry. I didn't think I could cry in front of so many people.
I haven't cried in 16 years.
I think it's just because I'm hungover.
Yeah, and also I cried at Ava Voyage 2 nights ago.
Don't get us started on Ava Voyage.
Ava Voyage.
If you can go,
you need to go.
We became women that night. Ben de la Creme says, drag is an ability to create magic out of nothing, whether that means a fabulous outfit made out of the scraps no one wants, or a fabulous existence when society has told us we don't deserve to live. And I just think that's a really, I think that's a very powerful quote. And for me, it really speaks to Asajj Ventress, because she had a traumatic start to life. She just an awful start to life, and then so she found comfort and she found solace in the Jedi Order, and so she sort of donned the drag of Jedi, right? She put that on. She put that, like, I claimed that as a part of her identity, and then when that didn't work out, I guess I'll say, she donned the identity of and the drag of Sith. And then when that didn't work out, she finally found herself donning the drag of bounty hunter. And the thing about bounty hunter, I think in the world of Star Wars, I think it's a really wonderful way to sort of for her to rebel against like these like huge oppressive forces and oppressive organizations, and really like find a way to fight for herself and like self-define who she is in the galaxy, which is why I love like her bounty hunter journey specifically.
Oh yeah, I mean she is the character of like self-identification. She says,
yes.
This is who I am now, this is the life that I'm living, and I think she has a great queer tenacity about that.
Yes.
You know, because she just inherent like, she will never betray herself. Like she is first and foremost her own ally.
100%. I love that. And yeah, I related to that a lot, because like growing up, I very much donned like straight person drag as best I could. And then that didn't really work out for me. And then at 18, I donned like, okay, well I just came out and I'm gonna don like this gay drag, right? I can't, like, what does being gay mean? Like now that I'm out, I'm just gonna be like gay. But I was like, I mean, it was toxic, girl. I was like 18-year-old white twink. It was bad. It was bad. I am self-aware. That is, yeah, very bad. But then I gave that up, thank God. And then I 10 years later, I like to think I'm a little self-defining girly now. And now I you know, whatever drag I'm wearing day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, second to second, you know what I'm. So yeah, basically in a society of boxes and labels and like of outside forces constantly trying to label you, it is a political act to explore what drags you do and do not don, and like you define yourself with that. And I just think that's a very political thing to do, and Asajj Ventress does it so well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that leads really nicely into the next person we want to talk about, which is obviously Padme, Queen Mother. Yes, thank you.
Queen Mother.
Queen Mother. I don't know if you guys know this. She's kind of a political character. Like, I don't know. It's like kind of a thing. I mean, she's easily the most political character in all of Star Wars. Like everybody else is in Blazing Saddles, and she is in West Wing. Like she's totally. Well, and which I think I love that because like she acts not only as a politician in her actual job, like her 9 to 5, but also like she kind of acts as the morality foil for Anakin as well. So like she is kind of this hood of politicalness. And when we first meet her, like she's in probably the draggiest outfit in the entirety of the Star Wars, like the full headpiece. Like, ma'am, how long did it take you to get ready for this council? Because she was like, I need to serve my people and looks. Put out. Yeah, but we see her at first. She is in this huge traditional outfit that is very of her people, and she's speaking the opinions of her people. She's not really diving into her own political beliefs at all. She's just kind of wearing the drag of a leader. She's wearing the drag of a queen. And as we look at her costume evolution throughout the entire series, we kind of see her start to shift and start to change as her as a character begins to change, and her relationship with politics begins to change. We see her start to stand up for what she believes and speak her own mind. We see her speak with Anakin about what like being a politician means, and especially in the Clone Wars, we see her kind of like come into this style and look that is entirely her own. And I think that's a really good metaphor for how we as queer people, like Chase was saying, when we first come out, we kind of act what we think gay people act like, you know, and for me that was Ellen DeGeneres, and yeah, I know, a mistake.
Didn't age well, but.
Did not age well, but, you know, and then as you kind of continue on and you live, and you're kind of parroting back what older queer people have told you, like you kind of think their opinions are your own opinions, but then as you grow and you learn and you become more of yourself, you start to find your own opinions, find your own look, and eventually even you can look like this.
Well, I will say it was so funny writing this part of the panel because we were like, what character should we do? And we had like, obviously, especially the prequels, like there's so much drag in the prequels, right? And there's so many like kind of like these obvious drag moments in the sequels. And then we landed on Asajj Ventress and Padme, and we were like, what the hell? We were like, how are those two in the same sort of sequence? But it was kind of fun to see how those two characters related to each other and how much they actually kind of do have in common when you kind of look at it from that lens.
And frankly, I want them to do a mini-series of the two of them going on a Cabo vacation.
Ooh.
And I want Max Rebo to come by and be like, Margarita!
And before we move on to the original trilogy, we have to speak on the penultimate drag performance of the prequels, being the duel on Mustafar. That is a lip sync for your life if I have ever seen it.
It is happening to me. Yeah. Literally, Obi-Wan Kenobi looking at Padme choking on the ground and saying, I gotta do a reveal.
All reveal.
You're kidding me!
The stamina, the coordination of that duel. Only a drag queen and king and in between can do that. The flips,
the dips, and the trips. It's like literally they're doing NSYNC choreography while like fighting. I'm obsessed with this. We were talking about this when we were planning the panel, and I was like, I think that you can actually put that entire fight sequence to 3 by Britney Spears, and it would probably match up perfectly.
And if we don't do that by the end of this weekend, we failed. What else is drag about the duel on Mustafar? I mean, the absurdness of swinging lightsabers and not hitting each other, the hand thing.
The hand thing.
Yeah, that.
I mean, the fact that it's like, It's that experience also where it's like Obi-Wan is a gay person going to Olive Garden with his straight friends, and they start to have a fight very loudly, and he's just sitting there uncomfortable. And that's gay experience.
Okay, well now let's switch gears on that note.
You want to talk about Olive Garden?
Well, I do, but I can talk too long about Olive Garden. Let's switch gears to the original trilogy and theatricalism, starting with...
I think possibly, other than Padme, her husband might be the biggest drag queen in the entire because like Darth Vader basically looks like he's coming out at the beginning of Tu Wong Fu. Like he is fully dragged out. I mean, like he's very much a character of a bygone time. Like I feel like we don't really have villains like we have Vader anymore because I don't think he's really a screen villain. I think he's designed like a stage villain, you know, because he's all about the spectacle and the silhouette, and he's always saying stuff like "you will choke on your own ambition." It's like,
literally, he's like, I find your lack of stage presence most disturbing. I mean, Darth Vader is literally RuPaul Charles. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, he gives mommy and dad. Do you know what I mean? And he eliminates anyone he wants.
Yes.
You know, he just sashay away.
He's like, who's the selfish one? Sorry, that lose my mind. I mean, honestly, like the reveal of Vader is basically like the same beat for beat, the same as the reveal of Phantom of the Opera, and like literally. And what I also love about him is like he's literally Anakin's drag persona.
Literally.
He's like, let me put my good drag on and go out and really mess with my son. Like. He's like, I want that tweet, literally.
He's the representation we need.
Yes!
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Is there anything more of a dad than being like, I'm gonna put on a fun little outfit and embarrass my son by chopping off his hand? Not a relatable experience, I suppose. Yeah, but no, I love Vader. He is a vaudeville character, he is a theater character, and he is a drag character through and through. I'm shocked, honestly, that they didn't have his lips. Well, I guess you can't really see his lips, can you?
He's like, I'd like to keep it on. So, are you finished on V? Okay, great. I'm gonna get to Luke and Leia because, like, to me, Luke and Leia represent like gender performance in such a satisfying way. When I think about like my favorite queerness in Star Wars, it really is Luke and Leia for me, because drag can be thought of in a lot of ways, for a lot of people, a celebration of gender and gender identity, and for some it can be a parody of gender roles in society and kind of like mocking that. So in drag kings, queens, and in-betweens, they all utilize their drag to either celebrate or subvert gender or both. And Luke and Leia have always been, like I said, my favorite reading of queerness in Star Wars. And like, we see Luke being very, very yearning, like he's very like Disney princess vibes. He wants more than this simple life. Like, he wants all these things. He's so pretty while he does it too.
He's in the Kelly Clarkson Breakaway music
He
video.
is. She wrote that about him. And then on the other side, you have Leia, this like life of experience, this like humanitarian leader at a very, very young age, being very experienced. And he's like very not experienced in a lot of things. And then you have, like, with that, Luke can be very himbo-y, and Leia is smart and independent. You have Luke as very wide-eyed and sometimes a damsel in distress, and then you have Leia being the hero. You know, she saved the trio at A New Hope. She picked up Luke at Empire Strikes Back, and she befriended Wicket and kind of saved the day there too. I mean, she's just like, she's the moment.
She killed some guy named Jabba. I guess he's kind of a big deal.
100%. Yes, yes. So yeah, and Luke is overall more softer and like a little bit more docile, and Leia is like prickly and outspoken. And so you can read all of this like gender performance as either a subversion of societal expectations or a celebration of gender, and I just think that's one of my favorite things about them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, apparently we have diagnosed this because both of the parents are drag queens, so clearly they came out just at like no hope for them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, they were going to be gender flipped from the beginning.
Absolutely. I mean, I also love, like, they were kind of designed to be kind of blank slates for everybody to put themselves onto. And I think the fact that they can so easily be read as queer kind of shows that it's like, that is just an inherent part of media, an inherent part of experience is like being a little gay kid on a desert planet, looking at your uncle, oh, I hate my uncle so much. Oh.
Yeah, the angst.
Oh, the angst, yeah.
And so to transition us to the end of the original trilogy, and since it is the anniversary of Return of the Jedi, we thought we'd talk about what's drag about Return of the Jedi. Obviously, the gay club that is Jabba's Palace. I mean, we get a musical number with Psy, Joe, and the Max Rebo Band, and I just have to say, Psy and Joe, oh yes! I've always said Psy and Joe are like literally Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett. I watch it and all I see is Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett. I don't care. Tony! Tony! Yes.
Oh, yeah, I mean, honestly, like, you can probably see, like, 18-year-old, well, like, 17-year-old Luke scrubbing the X's off the bathroom.
And then we have Boish Leia, like, drag king moment. That is like, and she looks so good doing it. She looks so good doing it. So that's like, obviously, Hutt Leia.
To me, it's not an obvious one, but to me, I think the campiest and funniest part of Return of the Jedi is Luke telling Leia that they're related in the most vague way possible. He was just like, I see you. Like, I wanted a Parent Trap moment where they were like, we're closer than sisters. We're twins.
Also, I just have to say, I don't know why it is, maybe someone can help me after the panel. Something about this line is drag to me, and it's just the Boba Fett, where? And then he just like throws himself to the, that's drag, I don't know why. I don't know why.
That's like have you a cigarette.
And obviously like the Yum Nub celebration, the unifying of underdogs to fight fascism and all that too, that's great. I'm more of a Boba Fett wear kind of guy.
And I'm more about the 3-minute sequence before the Solo pit fight, which is close-ups on everybody's face.
Yes, I'm telling you, the amount of lip syncs for your lives in Star Wars is kind of absurd. Okay, anything else on OT?
No, I mean, I've never seen this movie, so it sounds really good though.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the sequel trilogy and the identity discoveries and expressions throughout those movies. And one of the things that like one of our friends M has always said is like, we think collectively, I guess, we share one brain cell. We kind of just feel like sometimes the sequels are misunderstood in ways of like how gender flipped they are. Well, Jesus is a different word, but I don't know how old everyone is in here. But Jesus, they're gender screwed. They're screwy. They're gender screwy. And that's like one of my favorite things about it. But specifically Rey Skywalker. I have to talk about Rey. We're getting more Rey, which is amazing. Yeah, so for me, it's like I just kind of want to read into her story, sort of about like how she helped inform my gender identity and also like community through all of that. So as we all know, RuPaul, I mean, I hate to be quoting RuPaul, but I just find him accessible. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Everyone knows him. So, you know, you're born naked and the rest is drag, right? So with Rey, she's a little bit similar to my thoughts on Ventress in the way that, like, you know, in a self-defining way. But the main difference is that with Rey, we get a deeper exploration of self and connection with herself and a whole sort of meta aspect to it, because Rey is a character that's been, like, both in universe and out of universe in the fandom. She's been, like, constantly labeled by others and constantly judged off of those labels by other people in the galaxy, out of the galaxy. And like, you know, nobody is somebody, a Palpatine, a Skywalker, whatever. But the only constant is that she's still Rey. Like, that one name and that one character and her essence remains true, remains completely unchanged no matter what others say or believe. And what I wouldn't do to talk to Daisy Ridley about this, because I'm telling you, there's like a meta aspect to it where it's like, she has to like go to bed every night and be like, well, you know what? Rey is still Rey, and she's my girl, you know what I mean? And I am her and she is me and Slay. I don't know. So, what makes her I think that all makes her sort of like the perfect hero for the time that we live in now. Because we witness her like confront and explore different parts of her identity and like accepting the light and dark sides as parts of her existence and her reality, and still choosing which side she identifies with. Which I think is like such a powerful thing, and a lot of times we don't get that. So I think she's great for like a modern hero.
Yeah, I mean, not to be controversial, but I think the sequels get a lot of hate.
Right.
When, like, I think, especially when we look at the basis of these characters, they have these incredible complexities. And Rey, like specifically, I think she's just, like you said, she's just so, to borrow a phrase from me earlier, a queer tenacity.
Yes,
like she's
yes.
just persevering. She is overcoming. She is expressing herself. She's a fantastic character. I can't speak it. I don't like. I wish I was more eloquent about like the depth that I think she's touched people, specifically queer people.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Because like for me, it felt similar. What felt similar about Rey's journey to me is sort of like, I'm so sorry, like so close off to this corner of the room. I'm so sorry. Okay, so we'll just like, well, we talked about maybe sitting on each end of the table and just looking at each other across the
Right?
It might be a vibe. Anyways, so I relate to her in my gender identity in the way, it's not nice to see her over here, and being told what my gender is, right, by society, being told like what I am and how I should express myself based off of that, how I should feel about the world, how I should navigate the world based off of that. And then something happened during the pandemic where I got really confused in the best of ways. And I sort of started questioning what felt true and what didn't feel true. I really was like, well, do I feel like a man? And then I was like, well, no. And I was like, well, do I feel like a woman? And so this whole like questioning of what feels true and what doesn't feel true is, I think, similar to Rey. And ultimately like choosing my non-binary identity as true for me and choosing like my he, they pronouns that work for me and like is similar to how Rey chooses the last name of Skywalker, which by the way, I think is like a really great reminder to be respectful of people's like identities and pronouns. And it's like, pronouns is such like an eye-rolly word for me sometimes, but I just think it's interesting when you think about like how much people go through to claim those in the way that Rey went through a lot to claim that name. And she, well, I'm not gonna get into the politics of Star Wars, but I love it. Anyways, so yeah, I think it's like a nice like respect moment to be like, wow, like people don't just like choose the pronouns, and if they do, slay, but like a lot of people go through journeys, they question things and it changes the way they look at the world. Like ever since I've come out as non-binary, my love for women has deepened. Deeper than I ever thought it could go. Like I only talk about women. It's the crazy, I just like, it's everything.
It's the only thing we talk about.
No, I can't.
Basically.
You guys, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. Anyways, yes.
No, that was something that we first really bonded with when we we kind of each went on this gender journey during the pandemic. Very like honestly like within weeks of each other.
Yes, yes. There was
a seismic shift.
That's what it's called. Yes. Yeah.
Archaeologists.
Archaeologists. They're very smart. I'm not.
But no, that's something that we really related to was like. I mentioned, my brother will attest to this, for most of my life I described my body as just sort of a flesh prison that I exist in. And my consciousness was entirely detached. And when I realized I was non-binary, it kind of allowed me to conceptualize who I am with like my actual body, which I think it's something that Rey experiences, especially in the second movie where she's learning to be a Jedi and she's training, she's getting to know her body, she's getting to know what this power inside of her is. So it's like, I think that's something that at least my insane brain was able to relate to.
Yeah, and it like very much relates to drag because a lot of queer folks, and I mean straight folks too, why not? A lot of people like use drag, well not use it, well, use it. I mean, whatever, words don't matter. They play with drag. And they play with drag to discover different parts of themselves and to explore different parts of themselves. You know what I mean? They wear different kinds of makeup, different kinds of clothing, different kinds of like attachments or whatever. Like it's just to help sort of navigate that experience and feel find out what feels true for them. So
yes, that's why I'm dressed like Johnny Cash. Oh yeah, but I mean, to move us on to our next character, just hop, skip, and a jump over to Finn, who is just a delight. Who doesn't love Finn? Yes, I love Finn because I think he's a great example of a character who completely rejects the binary. Because he grows up existing in one binary, like the dark side, you know, with the First Order, and he breaks out of that, and that is when he's able to experience the full experience of the universe. And what I love the most about him is a lot like Ventress. He's working with the rebellion, but it's like he's not 100% aligned with them. He's just kind of like there hanging out with his boyfriend. So like, I mean, mean, that's canon in my eyes. But I think that is such a good example of another character who doesn't just jump from one binary to the other binary. Like, he just kind of can exist, and he doesn't need to define himself in any way. And also, we kind of see, similar to Padme, when he first leaves the First Order, he's wearing Poe's jacket, which is like, in a lot of ways, when we first come out, we kind of wear the clothes and the thoughts of our friends, of our queer friends, because, like, you know, we're kind of stumbling, lost in the desert, a spaceship has crashed. This has happened every time somebody comes out. It's a nightmare to clean up. But then, like, as he continues to grow throughout the series, we see him, again, come into his own, and he kind of creates his own structure, and he finds his family, and he finds these people that have the similar experiences, or at least understand him.
Yeah. And
it's a beautiful story, and, like, honestly, I would watch an entire series of just Finn talking about his gender experience.
Yeah, so, of course, like, we have to talk Star Wars. We do have to talk Star Wars. We have to talk drag in the sequel trilogy. Yeah. So, what are the draggiest moments in the sequel trilogy for you?
Oh my gosh. I will say, there's something extremely hilarious about Rose Tico taking a side quest to release a bunch of horses from a gambling planet. Free Willy style. Hilarious. I think that is, honestly, is there anything worse than when you're going out with your gay friends and somebody's like, oh, I just need to stop real quick and do something, and you know you're going to be at that place for 2 hours.
Also, I have to say, Maz's Castle, like, that is another gay mecca. That's like going to Fire Island, bitch. Oh, that's, you know what I mean? That is like, Maz's Castle just has that vibe to me.
What's the Cherry Grove of Star Wars? Where all the lesbians hang out. Halimoto's
Garage, absolutely.
It's the Cherry Grove.
There's also, like, Kylo and, you know, impersonating Vader and sort of, like, donning the grandpa drag. You can call it grandpa drag.
Am I a grandpa drag?
You are a grandpa drag. You are a grandpa drag.
Oh my god, I almost got my favorite part in the entire, possibly my favorite Star Wars moment of all time, is when Rey FedEx ships herself to the First Order. She Amazon Primes herself, and it's hilarious. To me, that is like, I don't think it was treated as camp, because in the theater, I laughed so loudly I was asked to leave. And I don't think it was supposed to be like a humor beat. But I was like, to me, that is camp. And it's gay people taking the worst way to get somewhere. That is you dragging me through the streets of Chicago after Carly Rae Jepsen.
Oh, guys. We don't talk about Carly Rae Jepsen. We have Snoke's gold lame. Yeah. Can we have a moment for the gold lame? Can we have a moment for Palpatine's costume change in The Rise of Skywalker? What else? There's a hold-on maneuver. That's a sleigh. Another lip sync for your life on the Death Star ruins. Flips, all of it.
I mean, Poe just basically designing his life after Carrie Fisher, hilarious and gay.
Yeah, very. Yes, absolutely. And also Leia rocket launching herself was a slave.
Another moment I laughed so loud that the woman shushed me.
But yeah, okay, so that's the vibe. That's the vibe on what is drag about Star Wars, and we hope that you enjoyed it. We're gonna get to a little bit of a Q&A before we wrap up with some thank yous, but yes, if you guys have any questions, is that what that mic is there for? Yes, amazing. Okay, so that's on, and if you have a question, you can go to the question microphone.
Please.
Well, that's because we're so thorough.
Oh
my gosh, you look amazing. I love that outfit.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello.
Yes. This is a lot of people. Hi, I'm a scholar of fandom and cosplay specifically, and a lot of what you were saying was resonating a lot with what cosplayers say about what they wear and all this sort of stuff. So I wanted to ask you guys where you felt the crossover between cosplay and drag was.
I love this question because we had wanted to include it and we just couldn't find a good place. So thank you so much for asking.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, cosplay is huge in a lot of people's gender expression, and also, I mean, how many people have you met who later realized that they were trans because they said, hey! Like, I met myself before. Yes, and also, when we look back on the history of cosplay, we see it's so much just, it's cross-dressing so often. I mean, like, I don't know if you guys know, but it's like a famous story about a woman in the 70s went to go see Star Wars like 75 times to recreate the flight suit, and like, you know, there's no pause button. Yeah. You know, we're watching that, and it's like somebody expressing themselves in that way and not caring if it's a male or female character is, I mean, come on.
Yeah, and can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Because my experience with drag was like, you know, getting started on it, I was discovering things about how I felt and how I identified. And then what my favorite part was, I was like, well, I like wearing these clothes, but it was still very thought on a binary, right? But then the more time I spent with drag and the more time I've spent with playing with how I present myself in my own home or present myself publicly, it kind of like got even more. It was like you had like a fresh popsicle, melted a little bit, and then by the end of spending so much time with it, it's just a puddle in the best way, where it's like, oh, nothing matters. Like I don't have to, you know, part of my struggle with coming out as non-binary was like, I was like, well, I don't feel like I can't dress non-binary every day, but then I was like, what the hell does that mean? And it's all to make money for the fashion industry. Don't get me started on gendered clothing. But I wonder, like, for your experience in like cosplay, I know you're not a monolith, but as cosplayers, but is there a similar journey in like the dissolving of like societal structure through cosplay?
Yes, I guess I can't speak for all of us.
Yeah, of course, no, of course.
But I'm non-binary as well, and so for me, when I put a costume on, I don't take the character's gender, they take mine. That character becomes non-binary the moment I put the costume on.
That's the best quote of this panel, honestly.
I love that so much, it's great.
That's amazing.
But I'm transforming the character into me and them into, you know, both ways. So you have to take elements of each other across the divide. Like, it's not a binary thing, there is no line. You are one and the same at the same time. And so if the character is a guy, I'm Tex a guy.
There's room.
We'll go down my autistic journey in tech at some point. But like, the way that you kind of feel like that is that I don't feel like a man, so why should I feel like, it doesn't make sense, it's very difficult to explain.
Yes,
but,
no, you're explaining great.
and so I kind of think with cosplay, like with drag, you have a persona, but the persona and you are kind of one and the same person at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Hello, thank you. I wondered what your thoughts on Captain Phasma.
Well, you know, a lot of them. A lot of them. I mean, a tall, intimidating woman. You know, hey.
If she wanted to punch me, I would say thank you.
Yeah, but I also love that she chose to be like completely covered in silver.
Yeah.
I don't think, were any of the other lieutenants or captains like that, or was it just her? I don't know, I've never seen Star Wars.
Well, I never, I don't think I have spent too much time with her character in the books. But I think what's most exciting about her is like, well, obviously like seeing the person behind the armor and seeing the presentation of gender, and also like, what I'd be most interested in learning about Phasma, I think, as a character, is how she navigated the workplace in terms of like the Empire. But like I just want to know like how she navigated, like, it's kind of like a little bit what we're getting in terms of just sort of like gender performance. With what we're getting with Denise's character in Dedra, thank you, Dedra. It's kind of similar in that way, and that's what I'm like really loving to see in Andor, and I'm hoping that like, maybe I should just read the book. Maybe I should just read is it good?
Jeez, you don't know how to read.
I know, I'm still learning. But yes, I mean, did you have anything you wanted to share about Phasma?
Just she's my favorite.
Yes!
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I was just wondering about, in terms of expression of gender identity and sexuality, particularly with season 3 of The Mandalorian airing, and how there are, like for the Night Owls, we've got Mandalorians in different armor, and in fact you've got some Mandalorians who do take their helmets off and some Mandalorians who don't, and what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's like a really good representation of how like queer people are not all the same. We're not all gonna express everything the same. Like, I mean, technically, if you look at it, Chase and I technically have the same gender, but like, I don't think we express it in similar ways at all, and I think that's beautiful. It kind of shows that there's a limitless amounts of ways that people can be queer and that people can be Mandalorian. And also, they look really cool.
Yeah, it looks great doing it. No, I agree. And there also seems to be, well, I mean, we don't know, we don't know the full story, but I like to think that we will get to a place with the Mandalorians where there is sort of like a respect amongst all of them and like not policing each other internally, right? So for me, the Mandalorians very much represent, well, yeah, well, thank you. I mean, well, sometimes I have good points. But for me, it's like, it's kind of like that horizontal oppression thing where it's like queer people just policing the crap out of each other when it's like, well, maybe we should be policing the police because there are bigger things outside of our ranks that are trying to oppress us, so why are we doing that internally amongst ourselves? So I really hope that's something that we kind of explore while everyone does get to express themselves however they want to. But yeah, thank you.
So this is like kind of similar to the plasma question because I kind of just want to hear your thoughts on a character. But for me, like General Grievous has always been, and like especially his relationship with Count Dooku because like in the Clone Wars, Count Dooku doxes him, but like, they're still like bros.
Yeah.
And like I feel like if Dooku had to pick between Grievous and Ventress, he'd pick Grievous. So it's just like. Yeah, I just want to kind of hear your thoughts on like those two characters and like their relationship.
He doxed him is the funniest way. I mean, honestly, Grievous is looking Camden straight in the eye. You know, like, I loved him. And it's so funny, because I know, like, especially in college, queer friendships were like impossible to manage because you would have two people who were screaming at each other and then 20 minutes later they are like dancing on the dance floor. They're just like, what? It's fine, he's just messy. So that is, like, to me, it is two queer platonic besties.
Yeah. Well, they're also getting a little bit of like, there's a little power dynamic there that I find fascinating from a queer reading. And I love that for them and I support them.
We support the rights.
But yeah, no, Grievous for sure is like, the way that robot, droid thing, the way that he is able to accessorize, re-accessorize, de-accessorize, all for the drama, it is, I mean, have you ever seen a drag queen with props? It's dangerous, and that's what makes him such a lethal threat.
Yeah. I would pay so much money to see him hold a little martini glass in every single one of his hands.
Oh my god, it's like that, well, scene in Sex and the City where they open the door and Samantha has like this champagne, she's like, yeah! It's like that.
I kind of feel like Grievous is in like the Jedi closet because he claims to hate Jedi, but then he's like, I want the cape.
He's obsessed with it.
And I want the lightsabers. And like, Duke, please train me.
Yes, you're like, wait, I don't want to be a Jedi. Don't make me a Jedi. I could not meet. Thank you.
I also love that they programmed him with Luke West. That's like a really fun.
Listen, he has 6 of them.
He has 6 of them.
9?
I don't know. I've never seen
Star Wars.
Right, just, oh, wow, okay. That's what I sound like, okay. Something sort of tangentially related to the Mandalorian question was, I wonder what your sort of reading of, like, clones and the customization of their armor. Like, I was, because I've seen a bunch of Clone Wars players, and thinking, like, comparing, like, Rex's Phase 1 armor and his Phase 2 armor, sort of combining both.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really fascinating because I think the thing about clones is they are very much. I'm about to get really.
The thing about clones
The
is.
thing about clones is I'm not very heady, so I'm sorry about this. But like, I think that they are kind of an examination of what it means to be human, what it means to be individual, and then when we talk about like. They kind of do what the new Jurassic World movies wanted to do, but they do it successfully, where they talk about like the ethics of cloning and what it would mean to be a clone and like how your identity is shaped by that. So I think like seeing them personalize and come into their own personalities, it's kind of, it's like I think inherently it's kind of a trans experience.
Yeah.
Because like you kind of are told that you were one thing, you were kind of born with this one purpose, and then you, despite the system that you're in, you find a way to express yourself.
Yeah, and I think that goes to what I want to hit on a little bit is I think it kind of, as specific as talking about queerness in Star Wars can get, it's also like an experience that I think is welcome for everyone. Like, it's just this concept of celebrating individuality, of taking the time to explore who you are and figure out how you differ and how you want to differ, how you don't want to differ, how you want to present publicly, how you want to present privately, and exploring all those things. And I think that like the individualism of it all with the clones is my favorite part. And yeah.
Just gonna do a quick shout out to Commander Cody, who's my actual husband. Thank you so much.
Also, sister, the trans clone.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
I wish I bought my custom Lego Mini for today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was actually a perfect segue because I'm going to talk about the Clone Wars. There's one episode of the Clone Wars where Obi-Wan and Quinlan Vos go to Mount Hutter, and that has listen to your panel, I was just like thinking about that episode, just like how the Hutt Council, like they've got these all special garments so they identify themselves, to make themselves look round. You've got obviously Zero the Hutts, who's, I mean, I would consider the most openly queerest that we sort of got in Clone Wars at the time. And you've got Cytotoons, obviously. So what was your opinion on those sorts of characters and the way they're portrayed?
I think it's tricky with Zero because on one hand I look at Zero and I'm like, slay, like you're killing the game, you're fabulous, you're out, you're proud, I love it. But then it's also like, but then you also kind of get into the stereotype of it all, and it does get a little bit like muddier for me. Yeah. So it makes it a little bit harder for me to enjoy Zero as a character. That being said, again, still slay. But I think the best part about like situations and characters like that, being able to hold both things as true in my brain is what really helps. And it's also a really great reminder that like queer characters, whether they're like explicitly queer or they're queer coded, work best when they're created by queer creators.
Yeah.
And that is something that I've noticed more and more in media, is like I can tell when a queer character is written by a queer writer,
yes,
or even a queer coded character is coded by a queer person.
Yeah.
Like Ursula, you can tell she's queer coded because she was, I mean, well, was it Howard Ashman or was it the other Disney? Ashman. Yeah, I mean, it's like he had a big hand in that, you know what I mean? And he's a gay man, so you kind of get that. You can get that energy a little bit more, I think, specified in a way that makes the media more enjoyable.
Yeah.
If creator.
It's what I call the C-3PO paradox, where C-3PO was kind of created as a gay stereotype, like he was like the, like very like butler, and a butler, and, but I think through queer people seeing that and putting the tiger on the table and yelling at it, which is not an idiom in America, I don't know where that came from. I think that queer people have begun to reclaim those kind of characters that are maybe a little bit like stereotypical.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And then we have about 5 more minutes, so we'll try to keep our answers a little bit shorter.
Keep this one very quick. What about the droids?
Gay.
I was gonna say they're where I find most of my gender envy in Star Wars. I'm just like, oh god, that droid has something that you have something I want. That is like, I look at droids and I'm like, ooh, that me. Copy paste, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with my original answer.
It's just there. Yeah. Thank you, appreciate it.
I'm going to try and keep this kind of short, but I want to go back to sort of like the clones and the Mandalorians, especially about their armor. And we know the clones are kind of influenced by Mandalorian culture, not entirely, that's a whole different debate. But we know the significance of everyone getting to personalize their own armor and stuff, and the significance with colors and the symbols,
Yeah.
But especially Mandalorian culture in itself, and you look at, especially the language, it's very non-gender specific.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was sort of thinking when you look at Mandalorian culture, especially you don't see a face, obviously.
Yeah.
you just see a helmet, and it's really hard to connect to people when you can't see their face. And I was just sort of wondering, is that why maybe in a queer reading people are quite attracted to the Mandalorians, because it could be anything? I just wanted to hear like what your thoughts are maybe non-binary in Mandalorian culture as a whole. Do they like quite, what's your reading on the gender of it? Do they see it? Do they not? It's not even in their language, sort of type thing.
I love that question so much. And it also relates to Phasma in a lot of ways, because the whole, like, I mean, when I finally, well, not finally, but I was late to the sequel trilogies because I don't know, I was busy, I guess. But when I finally got through with it, well, not through with it, when I got to experience it, I was, with Phasma, I wasn't sure what Phasma's gender was, do you know what I mean? And that was like a very exciting aspect to it, which I think definitely translates to the Mandalorians. I think I just want to say, I know we're running out of time. You answer. I don't want, it's too long of what I was going to say.
Oh yeah, I mean, not to get too, I have an anthropology degree, but when we look at cultures that have like non-gendered language and these different conceptualizations of gender, I think that it's a lot like you said, where it becomes sort of a part of them. It's this unspoken thing, and I think that is kind of how, in my mind, how it would work with the Mandalorians. It's like, you know, it's just, it is. It's unquestioned. It's just however you express yourself is however you express yourself, and you have to translate it some way. So they pick standard. Do they speak standard in Star Wars? Is that the language?
Basic.
Basic. It's standard Star Trek. Sorry. Yeah. So then they speak with like basic pronouns.
And another, my pronouns are they and they, for sure. I was going to say too, like, I think something that I also wanted to hit on in a shorter way is just that there's no shame in the Mandalorian culture around the sort of, in the helmet game, in the not presenting that, right? Whereas I think a lot of times in like our real world, there's like, people want to attribute like deceptive, like manipulative energy in hiding or showing parts of yourself. So I think that's something that's really like admirable about them as like a culture, and it's a cool, when you think about it from that perspective, I think it's a really cool aspect to them in Star Wars. Yeah? Thank you, appreciate it.
Firstly, can I say, I absolutely love your accent.
Thank you. The great state of New Jersey welcomes you.
Thanks, Hen. Well, I'm glad you kind of spoke about the history of LGBT rights, because that was kind of what I was wanting to ask about, especially with the way like laws and things are going in the United States at the moment. And I was wondering if you think, in terms of kind of promoting more kind of equal rights, that it's kind of important, even more so now than ever, I guess, that establishments, like a kind of established popular brands like Star Wars, as well as things that are coming out, you know, like Adventure Time, you know, they're just like, just how relevant it is, like, to help him, you know, promote the need for more equality and recognition of LGBT rights.
Absolutely. No, I think this is a great question to end on, because I think the importance of representation cannot be overstated. And then further, you know, we think about like media corporations spending money and putting time and money and giving queer people jobs and telling queer stories. It makes an actual effect on things, you know, like, and it's like, we both come from states, well, we live in states that are mostly red, which is conservative in America. And it's difficult living surrounded by that sort of culture all the time. And while we're able to find our own spaces of acceptance, that's not the case for everybody. And when you think about teenagers who are the only gay kid in their high school, I think it's helpful for them to be able to look at Star Wars and Star Wars having queer characters and being like, I'm seen, I can see myself in them, and they can find somebody to relate to until they're able to find them people.
100%. And like, I think like we had a little bit of a queer meetup last night, and we had this panel today, and the support has been like really incredible, really inspiring. I'm not gonna cry, but but like to me, it really speaks to the hunger for representation and and it's across, it's so funny, I mean not haha funny, but it's funny that like, you know, a lot of people think that it's just queer people who want it, but it's like more and more these days, everyone wants it. Everyone just wants like a diversified base of stories to choose from, to experience, and it's a powerful thing, and I think like the success of this panel and y'all support today, feels like night. Y'all support today, I think is a clear indicator that there's a hunger for it, and I hope that that hunger is met by companies like Star Wars and other huge, you know, businesses. We have one more, sorry. Yes.
It's okay. There's one part of the Star Wars universe you haven't, well, kept people. That's the actual creatures. So, like Yoda and Jabba, how in the original trilogy, their gender's quite obvious, apart from the Ewoks.
Yeah.
I say they're quite ambiguous.
Yeah.
But then you've got like Babu Frick,
Yeah.
who's voiced by Shelley Henderson.
Yeah.
And there's complete non-binary in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
Absolutely.
obviously then you've got Jar Jar, who is presented as male, but
Hey.
I get envy energy from Jar Jar, I always have.
yeah, that's
I always have.
Yeah. Oh, well,
But I'm
not
gonna sit
always,
down because
but thank you for bringing that up. We
Yes,
appreciate it.
thank
you.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Really, thank you. Thank you to Repop, thank you to Star Wars Celebration for this opportunity, thank you to Rebecca.
Thank you to Chase.
And where can people find you if they want?
You can find me in the middle of the Ohio River screaming my head off, or on Twitter, Tumblr, and Patreon, all under pencil scratching, some with an S and some without. I'll let you figure it out.
And you can find me on YouTube and Twitter at aka ThatGayJedi. And if you want a sticker, come grab a sticker and a business card. So thank you guys so much. We really, really appreciate it.